for the introduction, and then we'll take them off. We'll switch them off when Debra does a presentation, and then we come back on.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Welcome, everyone, joining us from the top of the hour already. I can see there was already a bunch waiting at the door, storming, and it's right at 2 o'clock, so that's always good to see. I can see Nick, my colleague, but otherwise Lizwe, Gerard, Nkululeko. Great to see you all. Please make sure you introduce yourself in the chat. We always like to know who's here, which company you work for, what your role is. We've got a phenomenal hour on employee engagement in store for you. So we'll give your colleagues another half a minute to join, and then we'll kick things on seriously. Also, good to see Marijke and Esti. I think we're almost ready to go just now. Should actually. There you go. I'm sure the numbers will go up just now. That's how it tends to go, but we also don't want to miss too much of our allotted time. So I'm going to now say an official welcome to today's CHRO South Africa webinar. Welcome to all the community members, and obviously specifically welcome to all our panelists, our 4 panelists, 3. That I will introduce just now. I think you're all coming for the topic, employee engagement and COVID-19, how successful companies connect with their people in times of crisis. And we've got 3 aces up our sleeve this afternoon. With Debra Corey, we've got a superstar global employee engagement expert. She's an author. She is since last Tuesday a great friend of the CHRO South Africa community, when we did a session on values, and we're really, really privileged to have her here, and she's got an awesome presentation in store for you just now. Then we've got Sneh Makakula, very well known in South Africa, CHRO of Tiger Brands, 2020 CHRO Awards nominee, so congrats on that, Sneh, and good luck next month. And then we've got Steve Teasdale, who is the Group Head of Organizational Development, Change and Transformation at Discovery, and that sounds like 3 jobs. But he's also in charge of the COVID-19 response at Discovery, so he doesn't mind putting his head down, I think. People that signed up early would have seen Tebogo Manecha from MTN on the billing. Unfortunately, she had a medical issue that she needed to take care of, so we're wishing her all the best today. But we've got a phenomenal panel today. Today's webinar is actually made possible by TalentSmith Technology. A really fantastic crew. Who are they, you ask? Then I've also got a question for you. If you're someone who wants to improve your recruitment performance, enhance your candidate journeys, engage employees, and up your onboarding game, you actually need TalentSmith. They're a local insights and implementation partner for leading global TA tech solutions. And if you don't know what that means, like I once upon a time, it means the absolute experts in talent acquisition technology. So TalentSmith is a phenomenal partner of the HR Indaba network. So we work with them very keenly, and that they really want to support webinars like this. So find out from you, learn more about your key challenges, and help you solve them. So this webinar will be recorded. You'll receive the recording afterwards. The presentation will be part of that. So don't stress if you miss a little bit or want to see something again. In the mailer that you'll receive after the webinar, there will also be a link to a free survey tool that Debra's created, and that's made available to you by TalentSmith. So that's going to be super cool. During the presentation, we'll run 1 poll, so please keep an eye out for that in the chat. Please engage as much as you can in the chat. Ask questions, difficult ones, easy ones, doesn't matter. We like them all, and we answer them all. If it's not during this hour, we will make sure you get an answer afterwards. So with having said that, and having introduced everyone, Steve, Sneh, and I will go off camera and hand over the floor to Debra for a presentation.
Thank you for that. We'll see how. Hi, everybody. Let's see. Trying to share my technology. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep. The little ball was spinning. That wasn't a good sign, but there we go. Let's see. All right. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. I hear a yes. Is that everything okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. So thank you guys so much for inviting me to be a part of this today. I'm really looking forward to presenting to you, but then also coming back for the panel. And the presentation that I'm going to be doing, you can see the title is Employee Engagement Through Crisis, Tips and Stories. And I always like the cover photo to sort of capture what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you would probably agree that right now we are living in a roller coaster. When it comes to employee engagement, let's be real, we're always on a roller coaster. I've been doing HR for over 20 years. So there's always a roller coaster, but right now, I don't know, that it's getting a bit steeper, it's getting a bit faster. So whatever we can do to support each other to understand it better and then also know what to do. And that's what today is all about. So there's going to be two parts of my presentation. The first part, I'm going to share with you 8 different ways that the world is changing. So how is the roller coaster looking different? And then, because I don't like to just put out a problem, I want to share some tips with you and some stories. And I've got 9 different tips for you today. So let's jump right into how the world has and is changing. And what I would love you to do, and Joel said you're going to get a copy of this presentation. I would love for you to sit down and look at those changes and think about what are you doing as an organization to respond and react to them. Because whether we like it or not, this is a world that we're in right now. I tried to pick things that relate directly to employee engagement and also as much as possible, things that we have control over. Because let's be real, there's a lot of things right now we've got absolutely no control over. So let's start with the first one. The first one is that there has been this desire, this need, this urge to connect with each other, whether that's at home or at work. I'm sure you're spending tons of your time trying to figure out how can I connect my people. And I'm going to share with you later some examples. I read a study that said that social connection is as important as eating your vegetables, exercising, and getting sleep. That's how important social connections are to well-being. So if you're ever challenged as to why are you spending so much time on it, say that: veggies, sleep, and exercise. The next thing that we're seeing is that, and I love this one, we've been celebrating the good in the world. So often we focus on all the negatives out there, but it's been lovely to see around the world how businesses, how people are celebrating all those little moments of good. The reason I have this picture here is to remind myself to tell you, I live in a village that has a cake fairy. I don't know if anyone else has a cake fairy in their village. And I love her because anybody in the village can write in and they can nominate anybody for doing something good, big, small, whatever. And then mysteriously, you get some baked goods on your doorstep. It's absolutely wonderful. Nobody in the village knows who she is except for me, because she told me who she was so that I could interview her. I've got a lovely blog where I interviewed the cake fairy and understood her motivations for being a cake fairy. So again, we're celebrating the good. The next thing, and again, I love this one too, there's an acceptance that it's actually okay to show the real you and to be human. And I'm sure that you've seen this in your organizations where at the beginning, we probably all got in front of the camera and we had all our professional clothes on and everything like that. And we hid our backgrounds. Now, I mean, you can see my background. I'm not hiding anything. This is who I am. My dogs will probably come in. You'll see my son walking by. And what it's doing is it's opening the door to showing who we really are. And again, I hope this is something that we need to continue. And we need to think, how can we encourage and support this moving forward? The next thing is that there is a move to a more flexible approach to work. And again, we've been forced into this. I've had many people say to me, it's a shame that a pandemic has forced us to do things that we've wanted to do for years. And this is not going away. I'm sure if you survey your employees, and many of you probably have, many of them still want to have that flexibility where we're focusing more on the output and less on the hours. So again, what are you doing? Not necessarily to hold that flexible position there, but to support your people. The next thing is that there's been a change in what's expected of managers. And later on, I'm going to share with you what I think some of these expectations are. And I think this is huge. All of a sudden, we're expecting our managers to lead in different ways, and we really need to support them in this. We can't assume that they just know how to hold that lifeline in that picture. We need to give them the tools of support and also let them know it's their responsibility and their expectations. The next one is that there's a need for a quicker and more agile approach. I'm sure that you have been asked to move quicker than any time in your life ever. And the positive side of this, and the reason that we've been able to move so quickly is, first of all, a lot of the hurdles have been removed. So it's just like, get out there, do it. Whatever you need to do, do it. And also you've gotten a lot of support, probably more support than you've ever got before. So again, what can you do to keep those hurdles down and to continue to get that support from your business and your leaders? Next one, huge, much more deeper reliance on technology. Again, people are really using technology to help them engage with their people, support their people, connect with their people. And we're trying technology in different ways than we ever did. I know for me, I'm doing a lot of these virtual events, and I'm starting to play around with things like Mentimeter, which is a great tool for, bringing people into a conversation. Events like this here, I mean, I love the technology. We can get into a chat, we can do a poll. We could never have done this without technology. So how can we use technology to help us? And I'll share some examples later. The next thing is that there's a new definition of employee engagement. At least I think there's a new definition of employee engagement. My second book that I wrote, I defined what employee engagement was. And on this slide, the first 3 parts of the definition are in my book, but I've added a 4th part, and tell me what you think. So my definition of employee engagement is very action-oriented. And the first part says an engaged employee understands and believes in the direction the company is going in. And more companies are doing fantastic of sharing information so that they know what's happening in their business. How is the pandemic supporting their business? And the reason this is important is the second part is because they understand how they personally fit in. So if you know that your business is having a challenge, you can engage with it and support it. So together, you're working together to make sure that your individual people are successful and then the company. And that leads to the third one, is that an engaged employee genuinely wants their company to succeed. And I'm not talking about putting in hours, but you know those engaged people. Those are the ones who come up with the great new ideas, that innovation. They're willing to try things. They're willing to fail and make mistakes. That's what you need in engaged employees, and that's what they expect you to give them the opportunity. But the new part of the definition, and this is something I've seen personally and also supporting companies around the world, is that an engaged employee believes that their company cares and supports them. That's huge. I've seen situations where an employee is hugely engaged. One of my neighbors is like this, hugely engaged. All of a sudden, his business, he does not feel his business is supporting him. He's being asked to come back into work. He lives about an hour outside of London. He's being asked to come into London 3 days a week. He told his business that he has some health issues, that he's a bit concerned going into London. It's in the UK, there's 3 tiers of the pandemic. It's a tier 2. And his business said, sorry, we want you to come in. All of a sudden, he went from engaged to disengaged. And the problem with that, I always like to have a picture to show what a disengaged employee looks like. And I found this picture and I thought, this is disengagement in this new world, that the person is so disengaged with their company and what they're doing that they've turned their Zoom camera off. They have their dog sitting there doing the work, attending the meetings in their place. That's how little they care. Now, I've got 2 dogs and my dogs are lovely, but not sure you guys would really appreciate them making the presentation today. So think about how that definition of engagement has changed. So I'm going to pause for a second. Those are the 8 ways that I've seen the world changing. Again, I would love for you to sit down, talk about those. Also think about what are the other ways that the world is changing at your business and what you can do to support them. It really makes sense to take the time to do that so that you make sure you're moving in the right direction. So why don't I now move into some ideas of what you can do? And I'm going to share with you 9 things that you can do to engage your workforce moving forward. All right. So the first thing, and I always start with the why, is to reassess your objectives, your why. I would be very surprised if some, if not all of your why has changed. So in the past, if you go back to February, January, it seems so long ago, your focus might have been recruiting people, or your focus might have been developing people. I don't know what your focus was. Is that still your focus? Or is your focus right now the well-being of your employees, the support of your well-being of your employees, the recognition of your employees? Really take a step back and think about, how has this changed? And once you do that, the next thing to do is to reassess your actions and your what. So I like to take a spreadsheet. This is my why. These are all the programs that I'm doing. How many of them tick the box and how many of them need to change? It's really important to do that assessment to understand the why and the what. And one way that you can do this, and I think that Joel, you mentioned it at the beginning, is to make sure that you're listening to your employees. So definitely listen to the business, what the business needs, but just as important, listen to your employees and get their feedback from them. Make sure you understand what they genuinely need. This is a screenshot that the team at TalentSmith sent me, and it comes from a survey they have on their website that I'm really, really proud of. They asked me to create a special pandemic survey so that you could go out to your people and ask them, what are the things that you need right now? So it's really important. If you do an annual engagement survey, that's great, but I would really recommend that you do more short pulse surveys because their needs are going to change. Remember, we're on a roller coaster. There could be one day, 1 week when you're going up and feeling good, and there could be another one where you're doing a real deep dive. So think about that roller coaster and talk to your people and understand how things are changing for them. The next thing to do is to find ways to communicate in a more open, honest, and transparent way. This is something I'm passionate about even before the pandemic. What can you do to make sure that your employees really know what's going on? I talked about engagement earlier and how an engaged employee understands what's going on in the business, and then they translate it to themselves. They only will know that if you're being open and honest and transparent. Challenge yourself. Every time you as a business get new information and new updates, think about, how can I share that with my employees? How can I trust and respect them with this important information? I promise you, it will earn their trust and respect, and you will get engagement in so much better and more effective ways. One perfect example of this, something I've seen more and more companies do, and many of you probably are doing this already, is making sure that that open and honest communication comes from the top. I've seen some amazing examples of CEOs really jumping in and owning that communication. And what that does is it not only builds trust, but also from a well-being perspective, something about hearing it from your senior leaders, it makes people feel a bit more comfortable. This is a company I used to work for, and I asked them to send me a screenshot, because what they do is every week the CEO does a blog, or he does a video, or he does both. And it's been fantastic. It, again, being open and honest, sharing what's happening good, sharing what's happening bad, even sharing his personal challenges. I think that really humanizes it, saying, you know what, I've had a really bad week, or I've had a really good week. So think about how you can have your CEO and business leaders step up and own that communications. Next one, find ways to connect your workforce. I said before about the veggies and the exercise and such. It's so, so important. I actually have a whiteboard over there in my office, and it's got Post-its of all the creative things that companies are doing. If anybody's doing anything, by all means, message me. I love examples. And these are just a few examples. I've got many more on my whiteboard. And you might be doing some of these already, or there might be things that you could get some ideas. Things like exercise classes. What are you doing to bring people together through exercise classes, or meditation sessions, or boot camps? Fantastic. Even nutrition classes. One company I spoke to, they closed their on-site restaurant, so they had their chef do online cooking classes. How wonderful is that? Or people have had like cooking competitions. One company invited me to one of their online cocktail making classes. That was a lot of fun, I have to admit it. Best desk competitions, I'm going to share that later. Talent competitions, Spotify did that. Pub quizzes, who doesn't love a good quiz? Desert Island Discs, that's when you involve music and you share your favorite music. What a great way to learn about each other. Pinot and Picasso, this is a company in Australia where they had online art classes where the employees and their children could come to it, and you brought a glass of Pinot with you. Two great things, art and wine, love it. And then one company shared with me that they did online murder mysteries. So there's so many ways to connect to your employees. Just make sure you listen to them, understand what they need, and have a variety to meet the needs of everyone. Okay, next one. Bring your values out to play. This is what I did a talk for Joel and the team on Tuesday, because I wrote a book on bringing your values out to play. And companies have done an amazing job of really getting their values and living them during the pandemic. I'm sure Joel can share with you the link. I just did a free ebook where I interviewed 24 companies around the world. I don't have anybody from South Africa. So if you want to share with me what you did, I'd love to share your stories. We all learn from these stories. And let me just very quickly share 3 of them with you. Top left is Zoom. They've got a value, which is we care for our teammates. And they really lived this because during the summer, when your children usually are going to summer camp, they did online summer camp. They called it Camp Zoomitude. So they not only cared for their teammates by helping their employees, they also helped their employees' children. Lovely example of living the value. The one on the bottom left is what you see is what you get. And this value is all about being your real self and not hiding and pretending you're someone else. And they had a desk competition where everybody sent pictures of how they really were working. And they said they had some hilarious pictures, things like people working on ironing boards, people working on easels, everything and anything. And again, it was a great way to connect each other and support each other. The one on the right is a company I interviewed. They've got a value called We Continuously Add Value. So it's all about looking at a situation and trying to make it even better by supporting each other or improving the product or helping your customers. And they saw that this is great for you guys because you're just getting ready for summer holidays. And they said that they saw that employees weren't able to go away for summer holidays. So they did this online webinars where different employees would do a talk about how you can have a fun holiday from home. So how can you have a staycation? Person I interviewed, she said she was in charge of talking about how you can have, you can put your tents up and have a camp out in your back garden. So again, great examples. Think about what you are doing to get your values out there and live them throughout the pandemic. Really, really important to do that. Next one, show your employees that you genuinely appreciate them. I actually think that recognition is so important to people's well-being, especially in this world. You need to know that what you're doing matters, that what you do is making a difference, and not waiting till the end of the year for the employee of the year or even the employee of the month or your long service award, but each and every day, give your employees tools and create a culture where you get people thanking each other and appreciating each other. It's so, so important. I've got just a couple examples for you. Top left is a company in the Netherlands, and they created something called a Wheel of Wonders, where when someone gets recognized, they get a virtual spin on it, and they get fun little prizes. I've helped companies do this before, and it doesn't have to cost anything. It can be something simple like you get an hour, you get to finish your day an hour early, or you get an extra holiday, or there can be things that, don't cost a lot of money, like, something that relates to your business, give them a discount at your business. This company, this is an example of what they did at the beginning of lockdown, and you could win things like toilet paper or a 6-pack of beer or silly things like that. Have some fun with it. Again, keep it going, just like a wheel goes, keep the recognition going. The one on the right-hand side, I'm a big fan of online recognition because these days everything we do is online. And this company has recognition e-cards, and they created some special ones for the pandemic, which are lovely ones. So you could send each other a little card saying, sending you virtual hugs, and then write a little message of what the person did to help you, or hey, homie, or high five from home, or you make working from home sweeter. How lovely would it be to get that message? How much would it make your day? And speaking of sweet messages, the bottom one is a company that I spoke to, and what they did is they created a box of appreciation, and each employee got this box, which you can see on the slide. And it had 2 cookies because, as they told me, everybody likes cookies. And then it had 60 little messages. So if you're having a hard day, you can open the message, you can send it to someone else, whatever you wanted to do to make sure They wanted to make sure every employee knew they were appreciated. Again, so lots of things you can do in this area. Get creative, have some fun with it. Next one, find ways to support the overall well-being of your workforce. When I talk to companies around the world, consistently, everybody is doing more when it comes to well-being. And it's really important to think of all the different areas of well-being. I recently just created this little image just to talk about and show all the different intersecting areas of well-being. So think about, what are you doing to support the physical well-being, the mental, the financial, helping them understand how to manage finances during these challenging times. And most people don't have recognition in well-being, but I do, because I truly believe that recognition can impact your well-being. How much better do you feel when you're recognized? And then throughout all of them, you can see I put social connections. So build social connections into all of these aspects of well-being. This is an example of a company, which I love this example. They did an It's Okay campaign, which was supporting their mental well-being. And they each week would send messages to their employees talking about what it's okay to do. It's okay to say that you feel isolated or ask people for support. It's a shame you have to do that. But by saying it, all of a sudden people felt like, you know what, I'm not alone. Actually, I have my business supporting me. They understand me. The bottom campaign was all about technology. It's okay to switch your notifications off or ignore your devices. Again, really important from a well-being perspective to do that. So think about what you're doing in the well-being space. And then the last one I mentioned before about managers is to make sure that your managers are clear on your new expectations. Each of these tips we could spend a whole hour talking about, but in a nutshell, and again, you'll get a copy of this, is think about these expectations. And these might not be right for your managers, or they may. Things like leading with compassion, leading with empathy, being human, being authentic, staying connected, and saying thank you. It's important for managers to know, we expect you to do this in this new world. We need you to do this, and then help them and give them the tools so they know how to. A manager is not going to wake up in the morning and all of a sudden know how to lead with compassion or empathy or know how to stay connected. I would encourage you to support your managers in helping them be the manager they need to be these days. So I'm talking very fast because I want to make sure the panel has tons of time to share all their amazing tips. But I wanted to just share 5 last tips. The first one is to rip up the rule book. So what worked in the past may not work now. Don't think that you have to keep doing things the same way. Don't be afraid to rip up the rule books. Also, don't worry about perfection. The world is moving too fast. We're not going to have perfection. And you know what? Our employees will be fine with that. They'd rather have us roll out a new well-being program that's maybe 75% good than nothing at all. Embrace the chaos. I'm sure you're embracing it already. It's around us. Embrace it. Just keep going. The next one is about not going back. And I'm sure many of you feel the same way about there's so many good things that we've been doing. We need to fight. We need to make sure that we don't go back to those old ways and ruin all the wonderful things that have been happening. And then the last one's just the realist in me. Hold on. We're on a roller coaster and it's going to be bumpy. So just be prepared for it. So that's me. I mentioned I've got a free values ebook. By all means, read it if it'll help you inspire. It's probably got about 100 different things that companies are doing. So hopefully you can find at least one thing in there that'll work for your business. So I think I did that so quick. Hopefully that wasn't too quick. I'm going to stop sharing. Did that work?
Points, Debra. Thank you very much. I've also popped the link to Debra's book in the chat, and yeah, please, as you sort of have thoughts, share them with us in the chat. Thank you very much, Debra. So much to think about and sort of present it in such a positive and inspiring way, which I really appreciate that what you've just shared with us. Welcome back to our 2 panelists, Sneh Makagula from Tiger Brands and Stephen from Discovery. Sneh, maybe starting with you and maybe responding to what Debra has spoken about. She's spoken a lot about the definition of employee engagement and the fact that a company needs to care and support their employees being a big part of that, especially now this year. So I was going to ask you, how have you approached in general sort of employee engagement at Tiger Brands in such a strange year and particularly when it comes to care and supporting your people?
Yeah, it's been a very challenging year, I guess, for everybody. But firstly, Debra, thanks for an excellent presentation. I picked up some really good tips out of that. Joel, to answer your question, I think for us, we kind of, without knowing, followed the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to be cliched, with care and empathy as the base. So we, right from the beginning through our well-being program, Thrive, established a very strong connection with our employees. Almost daily, we communicated what is COVID-19, how do you take care of yourself and your family and your colleagues. Because we're a large manufacturing food company, we had to keep going. We didn't really have lockdown for the whole organization. So a lot of our people needed to carry on coming to work, and they needed to know that the company, first of all, put their safety first. The company cared for them, and the company really provided them with the resources that they needed. So an example of that, the first thing we did was make sure that all our employees had transport so they could get to work during lockdown. We ensured that they had masks and the right PPE so that they could look after themselves, and we provided testing free of charge. And we ensured that they knew how to take care of themselves as soon as they were on site, in terms of hygiene, in terms of protecting themselves from the pandemic. The next thing that we did was obviously look at the sense of belonging, particularly for people that were working remotely. We enabled them in terms of working remotely through technology, etc. All the things that we thought were not possible before, all of a sudden became possible. And of course, people were having meetings right up to late at night, and we started talking to people quite often about burnout, about how to manage your time, how to take breaks, etc. Again, through our Thrive well-being communications. We then ran a survey, which is the listening that Debra spoke about, a specific COVID-19 survey, just to understand what needs were we not meeting, were people feeling cared for? I mean, we had a specific question whether people felt cared for and supported. And funny enough, the response was extremely positive. But what was surprising for us is that people put job security above their need for safety almost. I mean, you can understand the impact of the pandemic on the economy. So a lot of people were concerned about their jobs, particularly because we went through a restructuring process at the time. So we could then respond to that need to understand a little bit more about how people's jobs would be affected by the restructure, how we would support them through that. And finally, I think around esteem and self-actualization, we saw a spike in recognition, just informal recognition. Luckily, we have a formal program that we call Tiger Stripes. We have on-the-spot recognition where you can nominate anybody who's gone above and beyond in order to get recognition, a small amount of money. But I think it's the thank you that matters most. We also then have now just opened up for nominations for our Tiger Stripes Awards for the year. And we've put in a special category that we're calling COVID-19 Heroes, for people that have really stepped up during the pandemic to help us navigate it. I think the last thing I just want to emphasize is this informal connection beyond the formal communication and networking in the organization. So during Women's Month, for instance, we had mentorship sessions where we invited people with their coffee cup to just have a virtual mentorship circle with one of our female executives, where we could talk very informally about issues of gender equity with both men and women. And we've encouraged people to have informal coffee sessions, even informal cocktails. I think one of our teams even invited children to one of the meetings, of the team's meetings, just because the children kept interfering, but they had a special teams meeting for the children. So I think I've gone through most of what we've done, but there's a whole litany of other things that we've done. I think the last thing I want to emphasize is we have a communication app that we call Raw. You can see everything is related to Tiger at Tiger Brands, where our CEO and our senior executives and leaders and employees themselves can sort of communicate directly with employees. So this used to be a magazine. We've turned it into an app, so you can do a video, a selfie video, and communicate with people across the organization. And the last thing, just for the fun of it, to connect our people, we've run a competition. I don't know if all of you have heard of the Jerusalem Challenge that's taken the world by storm. So all our sites, most of our sites participated in this, and people had to vote via the Raw app for the best dance group. And we've just announced the winners of our Jerusalem Challenge. It was amazing, right from Potchefstroom to Durban to the Western Cape. People participated, and it was a way also of connecting our people. Just the last thing is, obviously, we're running our annual survey this year, Voice of Twitter, which has also forced people to participate in a competition around who's the loudest roarer, I guess, in the organization. We call it Loud and Proud, and they're having to use an app to scream as high as possible, loud and proud, etc. So that's also connecting people informally. So there's a bit of seriousness in terms of having to take well-being of people quite seriously, and safety, which is a real issue. But we've also put in the informal element, which is engaging people far more than we expected. Thanks.
Thanks, Naya. And it's such a great balanced view of all the things that are at play at the same time. Steve, we chatted earlier this week, and you were telling me that you're actually outstripping all benchmarks at the moment when it comes to employee engagement, whether it's global, within your industry. So obviously this is something that's going really well in such a strange time. What is your explanation for that? What have you guys done? What's sort of the secret sauce here?
So first of all, thanks, Debra. I recognized a lot in your presentation, but also a lot that I've still got to do. So thanks for that. And Snay, as usual, you've given me more work. So there's so, and it's wonderful to see that some of the things that when we work together are certainly sort of materializing into very, very cool digital solutions. So that's great. I think, for us, we must recognize, I suppose, the kind of organization we are. So, being a healthcare leader, we had clinical experts really quickly. We had a lot of our leaders, part of the COVID response team for government. So we were very much in the fight right from the beginning. And I suppose we had really good quality information, and that really helped. But the thing that really stood out for me was this purpose of ours. And, we've got this purpose, which is to make people healthier and enhance and protect their lives. And this just became so visceral for us, for everyone in what we were doing. Obviously, our members, we were helping them ensure that they were healthy and safe and well during this time. But there was just never a doubt for our employees about them coming first. There was some very real decisions that we made that definitely weren't good business decisions, but great people decisions. And I think those sort of stood out and sort of gave the sense of purpose, which we are very proud of and is core to our business. But there's some other factors I think that also played, and I don't know if others have seen this, but we almost saw this awakening of the missing middle, this middle management layer that came alive in COVID, and the power of that was, you know, very easy to see. And I suppose it's in a way doing what we've always wanted the middle to do, and that's, you know, endless engagement. Suddenly the employees weren't in the building with them. They were connecting. They were showing some of the stuff that Debra spoke about, showing a little bit of their lives to them, to their employees, and obviously having to manage upwards as well, and doing it really well. So, you know, the leaders really created an environment of caring and understanding and empathy, which is, you know, goes a heck of a long way. The other thing was this intensity of communication, because I don't know about you guys, but we saw, you know, it's just the amount of communication that went out was just phenomenal. And that's probably not always a good thing typically, but for some reason it was just consumed and consumed and consumed, until you've sort of asked yourself the question, maybe we shouldn't be doing so much, and you stop it, and, you know, for one day, and then people are asking what's happening with communication. So, you know, it was very, 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 very intense. So, and a variety of platforms. We saw all these platforms come alive, you know, the informal to the formal, lots of cool stuff, much like Snair mentioned, you know, things like Jerusalem made an appearance, but also sort of our call centers really, you know, I suppose leading the way in sort of having fun at the office. Obviously, they also had to stay at the office given the challenge. So a real combination of really solid organizational development practices. You know, it's a bit of a dream for us in a way, in that, you know, a lot of us in this behavioral space, we spend years trying to convince everyone that's an important part of things. And then all of a sudden, you're there and they say, oh, this stuff's important now, you know, go and do it. And nobody argues with you. And credit to the executive team, just an incredible bunch of people really committed to making a huge impact for their people and making people choices, making solid people choices. And so, you know, those are the things that stand out to me, John.
So thanks, Steve. I'm just quickly publishing the results of the poll. I asked, do you feel your company cares and supports you? Basically, to Debra's point, and 15% said nope, not one bit, but at least I have a job. 9% says I used to feel that way, but COVID-19 has dented that trust. 23% says ever since COVID-19 started, I feel more cared for and supported. And interestingly, 51% of the people here says, yes, one of the reasons I work for my company is that they care and support for me, which I think is quite heartening for from a South African economy perspective, that people feel, at least half of them feel cared for and supported. But there's also a significant amount of people that says, no, I actually don't feel that way, but I need to have a job. So interesting. I actually want to know from all three of you, but I just want to start with you, Snair. What is how sustainable are all these crisis measures? You told me productivity has gone up, actually, even though you went through a retrenchment. Employee engagement has been going up. You were doing surveys. It's almost from a HR perspective, like it is super intense. We're on a high. What lessons are you sort of learning that are also sustainable and that you can also still learn from in 2022? I'm not even going to mention next year. I'm saying 2022. You're on mute, Snair.
Sorry about that. I think for me, the first big lesson is and Debra mentioned it, is around agility. The things that we thought needed project plans and project teams and 6 months to design and develop for our people took us a week or two, because the regulations at the beginning of of the pandemic or lockdown were coming out almost every few days, and you needed to respond and enable the organization. So, for instance, incentive schemes usually require a lot of benchmarking, etc. Because we needed a large part of our workforce to come to work, even during lockdown 5, we designed an incentive scheme within a week and implemented it and communicated it to all our sites. We have over 40 sites across South Africa, and very well received, which is why we saw actually attendance go up and absenteeism was non-existent, and people felt valued that the company was rewarding them for literally risking their lives and continuing to come to work. So for me, the lesson is we can be more agile and innovative than we have been, and we can do things faster and more effectively to enable the organization and continue continue to function as a business. So building that lesson in, I think a lot of the things that we've learned around flexibility, we're starting to bake into our guidelines going forward. All those line managers that were not believers in flexible working and that needed people to be at the office so they could see that they were actually doing work, have now been converted. So we are really looking into this hybrid blended approach going forward, and we are reviewing our guidelines as we speak, and getting those approved as a way of work going forward. I think the other lesson that we've learned is absolutely, as Debra said, to see our people holistically as human beings, isn't it? They have lives beyond just showing up at the office and or at the factory. They have families, they have children that they need to take care of. And I think it took the pandemic, unfortunately, for us to learn that. And I think one of the things that we are starting to build into our practices and certainly into the development of our leaders is to see people holistically and let people be themselves, whether it's at the office or at home, and support them accordingly. And I think we've also learned that we need to support people much more. So we've put in, for instance, a program around resilience, which we call GRIT, just to support people with dealing with all the changes that they are going through, and manage themselves, manage their emotions, and manage their mental health. So I think there's been huge lessons learned. I mean, I think that resilience program also helped us just work with people as we restructured and exited some people to support them through that. So I think overall, even though the pandemic has been devastating in many ways, it's really taught us some valuable lessons in terms of engaging and leading our people with empathy.
Thanks, Sneh. Before I go back to Debra, just Steve, what Sneh said also made me think of your nice and shiny big new office that Discovery has put in the middle of the busiest business district of the country. And obviously, offices until February were seen as these flag bearers of culture and employee engagement, and that this is how you get everything going. And now you've learned all these lessons, and you're shooting the lights out with your benchmarks while everyone's at home. What role do you see for the office going forward? I'm not even going to say like how is that going to combine. Let me just ask you what the role of the office is going to be in employee engagement specifically.
Yeah, so in our world, it was a fairly flexible world before, not to the extremes that we have now. But things we wanting to do, we want to create our office as a magnet. We want to draw people in for experiences and what we're calling effectiveness work rather than efficiency work. We feel that efficiency work can happen anywhere, but plenty of the secret sauce behind Discovery is in the innovation and certainly in the culture. And so there's a balance. There's a balance of doing that online, but we don't believe that it's 100% thing. We don't believe that we understand it well enough yet. And believe me, the actuaries are doing the calculations in the background. there is something about this connection. And remember, the world and the context will be different when we go back. We won't be in a world where all suppliers, providers, other colleagues are in predominantly in one place. It'll be a hybrid system. So we need to work that out. And what we do quite well, I think, is experiment. And I think we will experiment and we will play. We have innovative businesses, the new sort of startup businesses. We've also got very established businesses, which allows us to kind of play with the ones that are more startup based and be more consistent with the solid sort of legacy businesses. So we've got a very interesting plan, but we're not shouting out what the answer is. And I think that's different to many others. We know that some have gone on and say it's this and it's that. I think the scary thing for me, and I really do worry about, is how people perceive coming back to work. Certainly my colleagues in the industry, and Debra mentioned it just moments ago, the response to how people can switch from being loyal and committed to being disengaged is really quick. And that forcing to return to the office, I think it's a very dangerous place to navigate and to create sense of, and we know this from many, and once COVID's disappeared, what does it mean? And we know this from people who retire, play sports after war. We know that they lose a sense of purpose very quickly. And so we try, how do we maintain that purpose that's very real in this context, and how do we bring it out to the end? So it's going to have to be navigated, but we don't see offices disappearing. We just see them looking differently. We build collaborative spaces, a lot more centralized sharing of stuff, and really cool tech to connect and play, and to innovate. So that's us.
Thank you very much, Steve. And so great to have such practical HR leaders on a webinar like this that can share such great tips with the community. Debra, you obviously speak to many HR execs every day, not only to Sneh and Steve. So pretty much everyone's talking about this hybrid model and trying to figure it out, and maybe some think they have the answer to Steve's point and some don't. What practical tips do you see in that hybrid model, especially when it comes to employee engagement?
Yeah, I think and one of the things that we've all been touching on is just the whole diversity and inclusion and understanding what's going to work for our population. I think that everybody is going through such different situations and trying to understand what's going to work. So in some organizations, they've got people who just want to go back to work. They've been working in their bedroom. They've been living in their bedroom. They've been working in their bedroom. They just want to get out. And there's other people like my neighbor. I can see his house right through my window, who has health issues, and he shouldn't be going back to work. So what are we doing to build a hybrid model that will help everybody be their best and also let everybody be themselves? And I think that this whole diversity and inclusion has to weave through everything that we're doing. How are we supporting people in different ways? I had a real eye-opener because my kids are older, so I haven't been in that bubble of having to teach my children. So, the only interruptions I get are my dogs. But then all of a sudden, my husband had to have his appendix taken out, and my son's friend got COVID. So he had to go into isolation. So then all of a sudden, I had to take care of them 24/7 while I was working. And it gave me this new appreciation about what some of the parents are going through. And I think that the more that, if we're going to keep the momentum going, and I think to me, momentum is the key word here. If we are going to keep the momentum going, it has to be done by understanding what we can do to support our employees, whether it's in the workplace or virtually. I mean, you guys talked about great things when your people have to go back to work. It's really important. They have to be out there. What are you doing to make them feel safe, cared for, recognized, all those types of things? I was going to show one quick thing as you were talking about the workspace. Can you see that little picture there?
Yes.
So
Yeah. I see the colors, not the words.
I wrote a book on the engagement bridge about 2-3 years ago, and it talks about all the things that we engage people, and workspace is one of them. And it's really interesting because I feel like I need to rewrite this book, because I do think that each element of engagement is going to change completely. Absolutely, yeah. Completely. We're going to do them all so different. But look as an opportunity, not as oh man, I got to do so much more work.
It's funny because we've used this opportunity to actually renovate our office before everyone comes back, just to create, as Steve said, more collaborative spaces, because I think people will more and more use offices not for individual work, but more for collaboration, brainstorming, innovation, sort of hubs and sessions, etc.
Well, that's what we miss, isn't it? Those opportunities to get off Zoom and come together. Yeah. I mean, I'll be there in December because you guys said it's summer in December. So yeah, we'll collaborate in December.
Summer's already started. The summer 6 months long here.
Oh, nice.
But we've got lots of more questions. Only a couple of minutes left, so maybe just a snappy answer from all of you on a last question. Sneh referred to managers and managers maybe not naturally being that comfortable with giving their employees more trust and engaging with them in a completely different way. What are you doing to help those managers be better when it comes to employee engagement in the future, Sneh?
So, as I said, we've baked some of this into our leadership development work. We run a program called Game Changer, which also has a bit of diversity and inclusion built into it. And the whole idea of how you get your people to bring their best game to work. And we've baked some of those tools and tips into there. We've also provided for them some tools and tips through our Thrive communication work, but also have made some Udemy courses available, etc. We're definitely not going into monitoring technology, which I heard about a few days ago, because we're saying you need to build trust. And that's the foundation, actually, of our culture, that we build trust in each other, because we are all adults and we have to work on that basis.
Steve, you guys do like to monitor stuff. So how are you going to train your managers?
So, a lot of the similar sort of things that Sneh is talking about, but we know that this is a mindset issue rather than a sort of a tick box thing. And I think it's about creating a lot more feedback, a lot more dialogue around what we want, a bit more human-centric about what people feel to be a manager, but also to be an employee. And we can find the answer through dialogue. That's the dream. I think that we measure it plenty, but we don't necessarily measure for that purpose, Joel. So the measurement is about trends, themes, connections, causal links, and that's, it's never targeted at an individual level. It's targeted at a type of thing that could be going right or wrong. So positive deviation versus identifying challenges. So these are things we love to play with, and we got a really strong analytics team that do that. But it's not about the individual. It's the individual relationship is with the manager, and it's a human one. That's the dream, and and that's what we saw come alive from our middle managers and stuff.
Thank you, Steve. Last word from you, Debra.
I think everything that you guys said about what you need to do to support them. And anytime I do sessions with managers, I always start out with what's in it for me. Because a lot of managers, we need to convince them, why is it important for me to learn these new skills? Why do I need to do this? So the more that we can help them understand what's in it for them, the more open they'll be. And I think it's just the ongoing support. It's been interesting for me because my husband works above me and I can pretty much hear him all day long. And he's a middle manager and he's in IT. So let's be real. Most people in IT are not necessarily natural, empathetic people. And it's been lovely listening to him evolve throughout the pandemic and see how he's learned these skills. Every day when we walk the dogs, he talks about it and he shares situations and gets my advice. And I feel like it's almost like everybody needs that person to talk to. So the more we can support our managers deal with these situations, I mean, he's amazing. I smile all day long now listening to how he supports his team and recognizes them. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Debra. Your husband is very lucky with a coach like you, and we've been very lucky for an hour to have a coach like you on our webinar. The same goes to you, Sneh and Steve. You also, by sharing, I think you're also great coaches to to the CHRO and HR Indaba community. So thank you so much for sharing and for making yourself available. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and please, if your colleagues want to hear more because they missed out, which is really silly, share the recording with them. It'll pop into your inbox an hour from now, as well as a link to the survey tool that Debra put together. We have to say a really big thanks to TalentSmith again, because they've made this possible. They're also making this the survey available. So please check out TalentSmith online if you want to up your engagement yourself. Let me just quickly start this one. This is obviously where we were at the moment. And then the next webinar is this one. And I think all our faces are in front of the date, but not anymore. So this one is about performance management and neuroscience. Please tune in, chro.co.za/events to sign up for any of our webinars. And then the last one that I can tell you about is Back to the Office or Not. Dieter Veldsman, the Group Human Capital Executive from Momentum Metropolitan, and Queen Mokonota from Oracle, and Rob from Oracle will share with us what their take is on this thing that we'll probably keep talking about for a while still, to be very honest. And to Steve's point, we may not even find the answer for the next year, but it's on top of the agenda. So with having said that, thanks once more to TalentSmith, thanks once more to the panelists, and thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.